Today on the show, Cape Verde does it again. Curaçao gets Ecuador in a classic 0-0. Big trouble in Little Uruguay. Some crazy games. Stars are stars. Messi, Ronaldo, Mbappe, oh my. And some of the favorites settle the noise a little bit. That's all coming up after this. Live from San Jose, California, and Brooklyn, New York, it is the Any Given Thursday podcast. Second round of the group stages has come and gone. And we're starting to see a little bit of settling, I'd say, in the order of the contenders, the sleepers, the ones who suck. Everything's sort of filtering a little bit, I find. But that didn't mean we didn't have great football to watch. Perhaps a little less competitive at stages than the first round. We had some blowouts. But we're going to get to everything, including the fantastic stories of Cape Verde and Curaçao, the big disappointments so far, some of the big boy check-ins, CONCACAF looking, all that good stuff. But how you feeling overall, David?
Feeling good. I was up later watching the game last night, keeping tabs on everything going on. It's perfect time zone on the West Coast for these games. I wake up and they're going up. Stay up super late for them. This is really the best I could have asked for a World Cup.
Rub it in. I'm up till like 1 a.m. watching these motherfucking games, screwing up my sleep schedule. It's I'm waking up late. It's bad. But things will settle out a little bit, I think, when we get to the knockouts. We don't have any of these like 11 p.m. kickoffs Eastern. But yeah, let's dive right into it here. Top stories. We have to talk about the Cape, Cabo Verde, taking another point off a relative giant in world football, although it's a small country, and they're used to being the underdogs in this type of discussion. But Cabo Verde 2, Uruguay 2. How insane was this game? Fascinated by everything that happened in Miami on this day over the weekend.
Taking out a World Cup champion. Right, a former winner of this competition goes down. Well, I guess not goes down, but is held to a point against Cape Verde. It's really incredible stuff, and it's only a little 3-minute spell right before the half that keeps Uruguay from dropping points here. It's both their goals come right before the intermission, and Cape Verde were really impressive. I mean, the ability to go from defending as stoutly as they do into attack is really, it's up there with some of the best counterattacking teams we'll see at the World Cup.
What was fascinating about this was, we watched first of all, it was 2 World Cup champions they've drawn in 2 consecutive games in their debut at the tournament, at the World Cup finals, Spain, now Uruguay. And what was fascinating about watching those 2 back-to-back weeks was that the Spain game, if you all had only seen them play in that game against Spain, you'd be like, all right, they sit 11 behind the ball. They are limited in the counter. They're just going to have to win this way. And then you saw the complete, not that they didn't do a lot of defending and sitting deep in this game, but it was a completely different style. They kind of matched Bielsa ball chaos for much of this. Whenever they turned Uruguay over, they were absolutely sprinting in the other direction. And they showed all types of like flair, back heels, like little 180 spins, incredible pace going the other way. And the quality in the final third failed them a lot once they had accessed those counterattacks, but there was still so much to like about it, and it was such a brave and just forceful performance. Like, they were very physically imposing at both ends, and so goddamn fast. Like, they were just gunning down. And to see them score their first goal at a World Cup in a lovely free kick that is an absolute catastrophe for the Uruguayan wall of just 2 who just somehow, for some reason, just jump apart right at the moment of of the ball being struck. It was very confusing. And then the second goal was, a calamitous series of errors as well. So it's not like Cape Verde didn't receive a good bit of help here from a pretty hapless Uruguayan squad, who we're going to talk about in a moment. But overall, how can you not be impressed? And yeah, I was just fascinated by how everything played out. It was so hot and humid, and it was great that this game took place in Miami because it was the most high-octane game of the round, and in the hottest possible place they could have played it, outdoors in South Florida.
Really, really great to see Cape Verde getting 2 points on the board. They have a legitimate chance to qualify and go through with even just a draw against the Saudi Arabia team that they could be favored against, maybe.
Here's the thing. If Uruguay somehow beats Spain, which they won't, Cape Verde can beat Saudi and win the group.
Yeah.
How crazy would that be?
It'd be something special. I mean, it's a really, really fun team to watch because, like you said, they're going to be the defensive team in pretty much every game that they play. They're going to have less of the ball, but they can counterattack in a number of different ways, which makes it very difficult to defend against. And I think we saw that here, that even if you stop, one type of counterattack, if you're prepared for something, they can pull something else out. And not every team that sits deep is able to do that. So it's a really, really well-rounded group of players, I think.
Cape Verde Saudi is going to be a very interesting game, and another draw probably gets them through, to be honest. Curaçao, meanwhile, also got their first point in World Cup history, drawing Ecuador 0-0 in a game that was, I'd say, for a 0-0, like, pretty entertaining. Ecuador, the tilt was about what you would expect. Ecuador pushing and pushing high up the field. Some decent chances, some bad finishing. Kind of the same story from the first game with Ecuador. And Curaçao, though, I thought showed a little bit more at the other end of the pitch this time as well. Not that they had a ton of the ball either. But I think after the 7-1, everyone was like, okay, nice story, but do they really belong here? And then they proved their belonging by making life really hard on Ecuador. And I thought if they just couldn't quite get that final finish or assist right going down the other direction, but I thought they showed some quality there too. And Eloy Room, the USL legend on Miami. I mean, what a day for him. First Vizinha, now Rome. Like, what's happening at this tournament with random goalkeepers?
It was 15 saves, correct? I think it's the record for
tied
most
a record
saves in regulation.
Yeah, I think he tied Tim Howard's record overall too. So against Belgium in 2014.
Yeah.
I think that's mislabeled. I think it's 15. I don't know. There's been some debate as to whether it's 15 or 16.
They took one away. Yes, but I think Ecuador have a number of problems. But to start with Curaçao, and obviously Eloy Room should take all the plaudits. It was an incredible game from him. They did a good job of forcing Ecuador into a number of meh shots, right? Not a lot of great chances despite the quantity of chances. So a lot of these saves by Room are just kind of ones you expect him to make. It's 15 saves, but probably 13 of them are very simple saves that he makes every day, every game. And then, obviously a couple really nice. Attacking-wise, I thought they were a bit over-aggressive looking for the shot. I think there were times where they could have maybe held on to the ball a little longer. 12 touches in the opponent's box to 10 shots. So pretty much every time they got near Ecuador's box, they were just ripping a shot, hoping for something. And I think it was probably tied into that underdog status, the idea that, okay, we have to take advantage of our chances because we're not going to have the time to build up and create these nice opportunities. So I think they maybe left a little bit on the table in that sense. I think if they'd looked for their opportunity a little more, they could have had something here and gotten away.
Well, let's talk about Ecuador and Uruguay then, because we'll move into disappointments, because both of them are on the verge of going out now. Uruguay could probably go through with a draw against Spain, which is possible, but Ecuador has to essentially beat Germany. And that's a huge disappointment for a team we had ranked quite highly on our power rankings, and many people felt was one of the quote-unquote dark horses of the tournament, a team that doesn't concede goals, a team that has this really clear identity and sort of connectivity through the last couple of years, dating back to the Copa, and just hasn't happened for them. They haven't been able to finish. I thought they were really good in the first half against Ivory Coast. No goals, had a few chances, mostly Enter Valencia. Had enough chances to win this game, probably. Enter Valencia, Enter Valencia, it's hard to be harsh on him because he's one of the great Ecuadorian players of the century and scored, I think, all of their goals when they made it out of the group stage 4 years ago in Qatar, if I recall correctly. But he simply looks past it, and they don't seem to have any other outlets for finishing. They have quite a talented generation, so not all is lost. I think you'd still expect him to be in Spain, Morocco 4 years from now as a competent team as well. But this is a pretty big disappointment.
Yeah, it's hard not to view it as anything other than a disappointment, especially with especially with Germany left to play. It's looking very unlikely that Ecuador will be able to progress in this group. You don't see Germany dropping all 3 points to this one. I think part of the thing that stands out to me is the midfield is very talented, right? I like Pedro Vite. I think he's looked pretty lively and good in this competition so far. Moises Caicedo is obviously one of the better midfielders in the world, but they all want to sit so deep. It's all, guys that want to create from deep, be the outlet for their team, absorb pressure, break up the counter. There's nobody in the midfield that's able to provide that spark going forward or those late coming runs. So when the ball does get into these dangerous positions, it is all on Enter Valencia. It is all on Plata to find the goals. And I think they need more options there. And I think you need to look at reworking this midfield, kind of put in guys that want to get into the box, be those late arriving runs, because right now they just don't have that. And so if you stop the first wave of attack, you're going to be left with Enter Valencia taking a bad shot or Yeboah getting isolated on the wing and whipping in a cross that's maybe intended to be a shot instead. And you can't really tell because that's just kind of what he does.
They're not super well suited to breaking down a team that wants 20% of the ball in the game. It's not really their strength. And you could see, other than Enter Valencia, the best chances of the game kind of fell to Hincapié, who's a defender. So, and it wasn't because it was Van Dijk getting his head on 6 corners or whatever. Yeah, I think I still go back to that first half of the Ivory Coast game where the press was really good. They looked good in and out of possession. They outplayed what's looking like a pretty good Elephants side at this point and just didn't finish the opportunities that were presented to them or that they created. And that's going to feel like the defining kind of thing now if they go out, is that it was kind of over before it even started for them. Speaking of, Uruguay has been kind of a catastrophe. They just don't look like a happy squad. They look like they all kind of hate each other right now. They have the similar problem with the attackers, although that wasn't really the problem against... They scored 2 decent goals in this game, and that should be enough if you're playing Cape Verde, as good as Cape Verde have looked. But they self-destructed. Both goals shouldn't have happened. And they look like they're coming apart at the seams to me. And they also have the Bielsa ball thing. I don't know if it works. It sounded like a good idea when he took over this team. It sounded like it actually might match the Uruguayan sort of feeling and give them something to band around as an identity, which is usually a good thing for this federation. But they often look like they're playing too fast. They push and push and push, and sometimes don't have the composure for the final ball. Sometimes things get so hectic that I think about this with Canada sometimes too, when Marsh has them really gunning, where they look like their mind maybe a little bit ahead of their body, and they're they end up petering out an attack because they don't complete the simple pass, or they get excited and rip a shot where they should lay off. And it just seems a little bit like they just need a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no calmness to the team. There's no composure in big moments, I find, with them.
I feel like this is something we see a lot of times with Bielsa teams. It's always so great in theory, and you can see a lot of very successful managers have taken what Bielsa has implemented, right, and taken this Bielsa style and, evolved what he's done. But his thing's always so great in theory, and I feel like it very rarely plays out in practice, right? Like, he's obviously a very intelligent manager. He understands the game super well, but maybe too well, to the point that it seems like he struggles to convey that to the players and what the actual expectations around their roles within his system are going to be.
That's why it's different with club and international, right?
Yeah, he's even less time with the international team than he does with the club.
It makes a lot more sense at club level, I think. Yeah. And they also don't have a great attacking line to finish the chances that are in theory created by the intense counterpressing and verticality with the ball. Like, if they had the Darwin Núñez they were supposed to have when he signed with Liverpool and looked like the next hot thing, that's one thing. If you have a really quality number 9 up there, if you had even 38-year-old Luis Suarez instead of 40-year-old Luis Suarez up in the box with his family, or a Cavani, any of these kind of classical finishers for Uruguay this century, they just don't have that.
Yeah, I think it's very easy now with a little bit of hindsight to look at this squad and say this isn't a particularly great group of players, right? I mean, Ugarte is coming off a pretty mediocre season. Bentancur is still linchpin in your midfield. Obviously, Valverde is great, but he's typically a complementary piece at the club level. So having to be the star player is a very different role for him, very different expectations around his performances and his job and duties on the field. I think the team is not as good as maybe a lot of people would have expected because, the name
they're
attached
imbalanced
to the squad.
Yeah. They're imbalanced. And we knew that. Valverde, like we talked about with Arda Güler on the weekend, I feel like was just pushing so much in this game. Like, he clearly felt like a ton of burden and pressure, and just looked like he was trying to do too much, grind them to the result, and missed a couple of big moments. Moments he usually has more composure in when the ball finds him, and it's just something about the vibes. Like, they don't seem like happy campers to me.
Yeah, as you were saying with Valverde, he took the most shots of anybody on the team, and I think only one of them was from inside the box. So it's clear that he felt a lot of need to take the game over and to be in charge of this team and just kind of pressing, as you were saying, for his opportunities, and it wasn't there for him.
All right, let's talk. We talked Turkey. Over the weekend. I guess that's why they want us to call him Turkey. Let's do 60 seconds on Senegal and Belgium each. Senegal gave away really poor goals against Norway and lost 3-2. Why are they so sloppy? What happened?
I mean, I think it's easy to look at this last game and put all the weight on Koulibaly, who was...
And Mendy.
Yeah, they were not very good in this last
game. Koulibaly gave away 2... We'll talk about him in the superlatives, but he gave away 2 goals, essentially, from mistakes, and Mendy didn't help him much either. Ball goes right through him on that first goal. But
it's one of those he's 35. He's playing in Saudi Arabia. I think we probably should have expected that he would take a step back. It's just he's always been such a calm defender. You don't really expect to see him making these glaring mistakes, even at this age. But yeah, I do think there's more just, a lack of ability to compete physically with Norway, who are a very special team in that regards, right? Like, Erling Haaland is an absolute specimen. He is a unique physical opponent. Sorloth and Nusa pose a lot of problems for teams as well, and this back line is very strong for Norway physically. Maybe I should have specified that earlier, that you can't really move them around, and I think Senegal are not used to being in a position where they just can't physically compete with teams. I think that made this game very difficult for them.
Yeah, the back line certainly looked like a weakness. And I mean, so, on the other hand, like Ismail Assar has been their best player so far, and Nico Jackson's left them wanting a little bit when the chances come in the box. And the combination of those things, I mean, they have two very tough games here, and the first game was like, I mean, Mbappe scored a couple of fancy goals, and here they make mistakes, and now they're on the verge of going out if they don't get a win against a convincing win against Iraq. They have to score a couple goals probably. Belgium, I mean, I'm not really surprised by anything that's happening with Belgium because I've seen this movie before with them, and talk about a flawed, imbalanced roster. My God, like, but this was a disgusting game. They might have blown their chance to win the easiest group in the entire tournament in a 40-18 tournament, but just drawing New Zealand should be enough to get them through. But these guys are so past it, man. It's hard to watch.
I think we both were pretty low on them coming into this competition, but even then, I feel like they've kind of disappointed a bit. I mean, this game in particular against Iran was not a good showing from the Belgian squad. It's very imbalanced. I really hate their attacking group of players and the way that they come together. I like a lot of them individually, but as a collective, I think it gets way too bogged down centrally, and there's not a lot of great options on the wings. Stalemakers is okay at providing that width, but he's not somebody who's, expected to be the quality of a Belgian starting right winger. Trossard, to me, has been extremely disappointing in this competition, just because he cannot play with Kevin De Bruyne. I
feel more like Kevin De Bruyne has been the disappointing one more than.
My expectations were very low for Kevin De Bruyne coming into this competition. So
he looks like a guy that hasn't played very much, to be fair. Like, right?
Yeah.
They rely so heavily on him to create for them, and he just isn't at his magical best. I think he took 5 shots, all from about the same position, right inside like the edge of the box, and I think only one of them reached target. He just, he had the most touches in the opposition box, took the most shots, but you wouldn't really feel any of that impact. Talk about a guy who feels like he's pressing. It just doesn't but your point is well taken there. And yeah, whatever the combination they started today with Lukaku and Salemakers also just didn't really do anything. I mean, and then they don't have great options. They put on a Fernandez Pardo emergency sub at the end, and he got on the ball at one point. But I don't know what levers they have to pull even. I also don't think they're well coached. I'll say that every podcast. Rudy Garcia's a bad coach.
Yeah, especially at this level. I mean, he's just not cut out to be the coach for Belgium. I agree with you on that. And I feel bad criticizing him because, he's a person. I don't like levying this.
He's a person.
I don't like levying this negativity against other people and guys who've worked really hard to get into the position that they are. But he's not cut out to be the Belgian coach. If you take Thibaut Courtois off this team, they lose this game.
I wasn't this worried. Well, and if that Wout Weghorst free kick routine was not an inch offside, then they could have lost. But they were also looked on track to maybe creating enough to win this game at some point in the second half, and then Ngoy, a terrible turnover, and Ngoy gets sent off because he receives the ball, he's going back to Courtois, and he sort of awkwardly touches it with one foot, tries to panic touch with the other, sends it out in front for the Iranian player and brings him down. And we were worried about the defense more than we were the attack coming into the tournament. And they both collided in this moment to draw 0-0 with a courageous Iran. I thought it was a good performance from Iran. Especially considering the circumstances they're under.
Yeah, I think they're a solid team, but like you're saying, the circumstances Iran are under.
And most of the guys haven't even played in months, so So, anyway, the last things I'll say here, I thought there were some crazy games. Obviously, the Norway-Senegal 3-2 was a great watch. The Verde Uruguayan game was crazy. And then Netherlands beating Sweden which we touched on the weekend pod, 5-1. Just a lot of drunk games this week. And then stars being stars, the Golden Boot race looks pretty nuts right now. Messi had a brace to take him to 5 goals in 2 games so far. Haaland and Mbappe are both on 4. Undav and Jonathan David on 3 apiece. And then Ronaldo got off the schneid finally against a pretty poor Uzbekistani performance, unfortunately for us as Uzbekistans. But let's go to the big boy check-in, where we had a number of teams who had pretty disappointing starts to the tournament rebound, mostly against opposition they should beat, to be fair. Brazil, Spain, and Portugal all had pretty unimpressive draws. Match day 1, they all get big wins here. Brazil 3-0 over Haiti, Spain 4-0 over the Saudis, Portugal 5-0 over Uzbekistan. I don't know. Do you have any big takeaways from these? Like, Portugal finally romped. Let's start there. I guess my main takeaway in this game is like when they play with pace, which we said last week, it looks immediately so much better. Like they played with speed and energy and pace, and sometimes it's that simple for them. At least when they're playing weaker opposition. Ronaldo got his brace. Blah blah blah. Does this make you feel better about them?
I feel a little better because I think we saw the correct way to use a 40-plus-year-old Ronaldo, right? Like in that first game, it felt like they were trying to give him the ball to be part of the build-up, to be a bit dangerous, to be...
I felt like that was him, right? He was hunting the ball.
Yes, I can concede that was definitely probably Ronaldo's decision there. In this game, he felt like he played the game that he needs to play, which is to be in the box, to be looking for the crosses, because he's still physically, outrageous at his age. He can jump higher than pretty much any defender. He's faster than almost every defender at this competition. His reaction time is insane. So we saw in that first goal, right, the ball coming in along the ground, and he just gets there first and pokes it in. That's how he should be used. He should be a poacher at this point. And this is the first time, at least for Portugal, that I've seen him take on that poaching mentality, right? Because he's used to play left wing and he wants to be on the ball. He wants to be beating people on the dribble. But this is the type of game plan that they need to have around Ronaldo if they want to succeed and play him. I think probably succeed if you bench him, but that's a story for a different day.
I think Ronaldo wants to be like current Harry Kane dropping in, current Mbappe taking players on wide, and also current Harry Kane in the box, like all in one. And that's only 2 to 3 players. That's 2 to 3 players he's trying to be all at once. But he also had 2 of the better finishes I've seen in forever on a Portugal shirt. Like
he does,
for him, not for any Portugal player, for him specifically. Like very well taken, both chances. And the second goal he scored too, which was, the kind of thing you can't do if you're an underdog like Uzbekistan in this game, which is turn the ball over in possession, get easily countered. Bruno plays a through ball to him, but it's the way Ronaldo, he times his run and the touch he takes to put it into the corner were kind of more prime vintage clinicality, and he seems to always be snatching at chances in a Portugal shirt these days, and maybe getting through that moment of desperation and finally getting off the schneid here means that he'll settle down a little bit. I don't know. He was pushing so hard, and it's gonna be fascinating to monitor. I wish we could just talk about Portugal, the team, but unfortunately that's not how it works in the Ronaldo ecosystem. I thought the rest of the team was great, though.
I was going to say, I think
Bruno
the rest
was
of the team
great.
was also really excellent. I really enjoyed when Biela came on at the end of this game, because every other player seemed to be focused on trying to get Ronaldo his hat trick, and Biela was just like, no, I don't care.
Yeah, I'm ripping this.
I'm going to play my game. Yeah. So I kind of enjoyed, having a player who seemed to just not be caught up in the aura of Cristiano Ronaldo, at least after he got his second goal, when it seemed like they were pressing a little bit to try to get him that hat trick to keep up with the performances of some of the other superstars. But
you better believe Leao thinks he's the best player on Portugal. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yes. Absolutely.
There's no doubt.
I don't want to take away too much from the game because it was Uzbekistan. I thought Uzbekistan looked pretty poor. They looked
The goalkeeper
like
was
a
terrible.
first-time World Cup team in this game. Yeah. So, but I think it's definitely a step in the right direction for Portugal. There's no doubt about that.
Brazil, we're going to skip because we did them over the weekend and still not super convinced about what we saw against Haiti. The Dutch, same thing. We talked about them over the weekend. Maybe they solved their striker problem, but some questions remain. Spain had a very easy win over Saudi. They were up 3-0 by the first hydration break. So no momentum change could stop them. Not that the Saudis were capable of switching the momentum. And this is why I wasn't really that worried about Spain after the first game. Yamal came back. Dani Olmo came into the team. Biela came into the team and looked pretty good, even though he didn't have an awesome season at Atletico. You just saw that there are some different levers they can pull, unlike some Spain teams of recent past. And I thought having Olmo as a 10 and Pedri dropping in a little deeper is useful for everybody, especially when you're playing such a low block. And Oyarzabal was like, fuck you guys for making fun of me. I'm going to have 2 goals and an assist in the first 20 minutes. Reminder of how clinical he's been since he became the Spanish starter a couple years ago in that position. And it seemed like everyone was like, all right, we got the Wonder Boy back. We're all good.
Yeah, I think just the return of Yamal added a little bit of confidence to the team that they easily could have lost after the Cape Verde result. I think it's a good mentality coaching job from the Spanish coaching staff, just to remind them hey, lost that game, but we were missing some players. We're missing one of the best wonder kids in the world. Let's regroup. It's fine. We just need to win one more game in this group stage and we'll be through.
Yeah, I thought some nice little tweaks, no panic moves, and I still think they're the best team in the world. Anyway, Germany finally got a proper test from Ivory Coast. They were down 1-0 for a good portion of this game, drew level to 1-1 through the substitute Undav, and then Ivory Coast had a couple of chances to take it at the other end. Eventually, in stoppage time, though, it was Mecha to Undav, who turns in the box and wins it for Germany late. This was a really entertaining game. I'm a little disappointed about the result as a Dutch supporter, but I overall thought this was a nice test for Germany that they just about passed, but they weren't. There's still questions, I think, as to whether they can sort of control the balance of a game for the better portion of 90 minutes, because Ivory Coast are pretty good. They're a pretty good team, turns out.
Yeah, I really liked the addition of Undav in the second half. I think when they're not absolutely destroying teams, there's too many players that want to drop deep to receive the ball in this attacking group between Wirtz, Musiala, and Havertz. And having somebody like Undav, who's a little bit more of a traditional striker and is a much better finisher than Havertz at this point in their careers, I think is...
Havertz's been okay recently, but he does kind of drift into the same spaces as the 10s.
In games like these, where you want somebody who is more clinical, which is just... Havertz is a good player. I'm not trying to critique him. I think Undav just tactically fits better against competition like this Ivory Coast team, who are a pretty solid opponent. I think when you're kind of on the ball as much as you were in the first game, yeah, Havertz is probably the right move. In this one, you just weren't going to get that type of possession and build up. So I think bringing in Undav, who can be a little more, he can push that back line a little better than Kai Havertz can. I think that is really important for them to have on this roster and to unlock some of the back lines that are playing well against them, because they have the players to stop pretty much anyone from scoring. I guess Slaughterbeck's injury, though, kind of throws that into question a bit.
Yeah, I don't know if... the defense wasn't the strength of the team. It's like an okay group of players, but I don't know if... Now that you have the Ta-Rudiger pairing is a little weird for me. I have less confidence in that because Ta and Schlotterbeck kind of complement each other in their strengths a little bit more. And Rudiger, of course, always has the wild card factor that makes you nervous as you go deeper into the tournament. The Nagelsmann noise right now is like people calling for Undab to start, and he feels pretty assured that he's kind of a super sub right now, that like he actually seems like, why mess with if I have a guy who's coming in after 65 minutes and just like full of confidence that changes the look of the game, that's as valuable or more valuable than him starting at this point, which I can see that point of view too.
I can also see that bringing Havertz on as a sub doesn't really do as much, because Havertz isn't somebody who's going to provide as much pace as Undab. He's not going to stretch tired legs as much. So Havertz feels like a more natural starting point, and seeing if you can build with that. And then if it doesn't work, you have a great secondary option in Undab, who can take advantage of more tired defenders.
Yeah, you get a change up in the middle of the second half. That makes sense to me for now. Last thing I want to say about Germany is Mecha, who wasn't even supposed to be a starter on this team. Karl got injured, and he had to step in, the 25-year-old Dortmund player in the center of the park, and he's been kind of a revelation. I thought he's been arguably their best player, other than Undab, I guess, and looks so calm and collected. He was the one that slid in the assist for the game-winning goal to Undab as well. Looks really composed on the ball, really quality progressive passing, just kind of like a classical box-to-box in all facets. I've been really impressed with him.
And he does a lot of great defensive work and contributions as well, breaking up play, kind of restarting it. Reminds me a little bit of what Amrabat did with Morocco, where it's just he's putting in this great offensive contribution that you don't always see from him, and he's peaking there at the right time, but he's still, contributing these recoveries, putting in these tackles, and restarting play really, really well. And obviously, Amrabat was super key to Morocco progressing all the way to the semifinal at the last World Cup, and Demetric can kind of take over that role for Germany of providing that balance between attack and defensive work in the midfield.
Yeah, he's in my best tournament 11 so far, for sure. France, I don't have anything to say about France. They just did what France does. They beat Iraq pretty comfortably, except for an hour rain delay. First of the tournament, very exciting. The Norway game will be interesting, because how do they cope with an actually potent attacking threat? They haven't really faced that so far. Neither Senegal nor Iraq caused them that many problems at the other end, and they've just been sort of coasting downhill in neutral since that awful first half they played in the first match against Senegal. I've pretty much learned nothing about them so far.
I think that's fair. I mean, the talent gap between them and Senegal and them and Iraq is pretty substantial.
The England letdown, 0-0 to Ghana, helps us pump the brakes a little bit after that sensational win over Croatia. England, though, have kind of famously now drawn like every second game in every tournament they've played in the 21st century, it seems like. So this is par for the course. And we've already seen Spain and Portugal put up stinkers against low blocks. My feeling is mostly that this usually happens to you once a tournament. Better to get it out of the way of the group stage. I'm not reading too much into it, personally.
My concern for England as opposed to Spain is that England should have lost this game. Right?
There should have been a penalty.
It should have been a stonewall penalty for Ghana. It's absolutely insane that they held play up for a second for VAR to look at it, and VAR decided, no, I mean, we see him crash through the air into the attacker's legs, not get any of the ball, bring him down. But because the attacker, then tried to play the ball on the ground, we'll say it's fine.
Which would have been a goal, too, if he didn't hit his own player in the back.
Yeah.
It was about Ghana's only chance of the game, too.
Yeah, and Jordan Pickford played with fire a little bit, risking a potential red card just outside the box. Not a denial of an obvious goal scoring opportunity, but I think if he was just a split second later, I think it's just a red card level challenge and dangerous play from him. So got himself into some dangerous positions, which is something we warned about with Jordan Pickford, that sometimes he can make these kind of rash, boneheaded decisions, but they get away with it. It's the group stage. If he only does it once this tournament, get it out of the way now,
And Nico O'Reilly hit the bar. Like it wasn't like
he had
they didn't have
opportunities.
chances. Yeah,
Harry Kane.
I mean,
had
I felt
open net that he missed and skied, which you do not see very
popped
often.
up on him. Yeah, that was right after the Nico crossbar. But I feel like everyone gets one of these in the tournament. But it's probably healthy for everyone to pump the brakes a little bit after that last performance. But Ghana deserve credit for being as disciplined as they were, I think, was my more takeaway than anything about England.
I hate to compliment him, but Thomas Partey was exceptional in this game. I know.
Shout out Judd Spence. Yeah. I think they're also not going to, after the first round or two of the knockouts, you're not going to be playing a team that is quite as defensive and needs to be quite as defensive as Ghana was in this game too. So it's like, feels like more of a knockout stage game or more of a group stage game than a knockout stage game.
My concern, though, is if it ends as it is now, they have to play Mexico in Mexico City in the round of 16. And Mexico can play this type of defensive game.
God, I hope that happens.
I know, but with the added elevation advantage that Mexico is going to have, being used to playing at Mexico City, it could be a very difficult second half for England if they end up with that draw.
We deserve that game. Finally, Messi and Argentina. My God, how does Messi keep doing this? He scored all 5 of their goals so far. All, for the most part, good goals, too. And he missed a penalty. He could have had another hat trick. Even, like, the thing with Argentina is that
natural, too.
Feels so natural. He doesn't feel like he's pressing at all.
The ball.
Yeah. That's the beautiful thing about Argentina and how they play is that they, like, even when they go through stretches where they're not dominating a game, they rarely seem at risk. And I've been wondering, what are their actual weaknesses in the team? Because even that you look on paper and you can, like, try to poke holes in personnel, but then when you watch them play, like, they're good at defending in a block. They're good pressing high. They're good counter pressing when they lose the ball. They're kind of unpressable themselves in build-up. And they don't even need that many chances to score. Because, A, they create high quality of chances, right? Like cutbacks, get good looks on goal. B, if one of the forwards isn't producing, Lautaro, for instance, just put Julian Alvarez on there. No problem. But, yeah, Nico Gonzalez, Simeone. We haven't even seen Nico Paz yet. They just have different looks in their personnel to throw out there to combine with Messi. And then C, they have Messi. So, like, even if, you saw Messi is way overperforming his XG, right? Because he's just scoring gorgeous goals from open play. So, like, I'm not sure how you beat this team right now. There's just the way they build up too, where some people have been doing tactical breakdown videos of it, but like how they overload tight spaces with like a ton of players all concentrated in one area, and then break into the open areas that creates elsewhere on the pitch. Like it's a very sort of South American style, and it seems like, especially with European teams or teams that are based in Europe or that part of the world, that it catches some of them off guard sometimes because they're so used to the heavily positional style and everyone being in their zone and whatever. And we saw it even happen to France for the first 70 minutes of the final in Qatar. They just seem like they have an advantage with their play style.
Everyone in this midfield can play every single role in the midfield effectively, and you can see them swapping in and out of positions and taking up, just being in places that the defending teams do not expect them to be. And like you said, great at playing in close quarters. And I think there was concern around the back line coming in, I think, just with Lisandro Martinez, Oti Romero coming off a pretty rough season when he was healthy to play and having some injury concerns. Lisandro Martinez kind of similar with these injury concerns, and both can be a bit rash. But Molina, to me, is the most underrated player in the world. Not Will Molina, the right back. He is so defensively sound as a right back. He offers enough going forward to keep opposing teams honest, and nobody ever mentions him in conversations around the better right backs. And I think he is so good for this Argentina team. He provides the width that they need because he sticks pretty close to the byline. He is the perfect player for this squad, and I really love watching him play with them.
They can win pretty, they can win ugly. They can, when they need to, they can be messy and 10 messy enforcers. But they can also play really nice stuff. And there was some things made of a lot of these players didn't have great domestic campaigns for their clubs. And I'm wondering if there's enough evidence now that you should just not rely on your Argentine players at club level when you have a World Cup coming up, because they all seem to save themselves to be in peak condition for these tournaments, as long as Messi is around anyway. So this is true with almost everybody on the team, including the ones that went to join him at Inter Miami, and everyone's like, oh, giving up? Not so. Let's do 2 minutes on CONCACAF really fast. USA and Mexico win their groups. Hooray. How does Mexico look against best opposition? Still a question. And what is the U.S. ceiling after the first 2 games? Still a question, but positive for them.
No, I think the ceiling is they're going to win the World Cup, right?
They're going to win the World Cup.
That's what I keep seeing on my call sheet ads.
They're going to win the World Cup. And then the other question is Canada. How did their midfield cope with that gruesome Kone injury? And will that Qatar onslaught that they had unlock some of their finishing challenges in previous games? All they have to do is draw Switzerland, and they also top their group. We could have 3 group winners in CONCACAF from the host. That would be exciting.
Yeah. And Curaçao
let's do superlatives.
A pretty nice point.
Yeah. Curaçao got a point.
I'm not really going to mention Haiti or Panama right now because that doesn't help our CONCACAF agenda.
It does not. Let's do some superlatives. Best team in the round. I found this one a bit tricky this time because we had some dominant performances from big boys against major underdogs like Spain over Saudi, Portugal over Uzbekistan. Then there was Qatar, who won 6-0 but beat a Qatar team that played, I think, one of the worst games in the history of the tournament, dating back 100 years now. And Japan beat Tunisia really bad, but Tunisia is super hapless. The Dutch put 5 past the Swedes, but somehow didn't look fully convincing in that process. I don't know. What do we do here? Who had the best?
I mean, the ones you mentioned, I think Portugal probably, to me, looked the best. I think Spain is in that conversation as well. I also really liked Switzerland's performance against Bosnia. I thought they were pretty
mid for 65 minutes, though. Then Monzambi came on. They don't get it. You can't play 20 good minutes and win best team in the round.
I thought they were better during the pre-Monzambi sub part than you did. I think they did a good job putting pressure on Bosnia. They just weren't finding a way through, and Monzambi helped unlock that. But, we can agree to disagree.
I'm fine giving it to Portugal. Biggest fuck up of the round, another one. So many options. We have Turkey, we have Uruguay, we have Ecuador, we have Belgium. I think the team that played worst, given the relative stakes, was Uruguay. Because the mistakes they gave up, the vibes of the team, the lack of cohesion, and the fact that not winning there probably puts them out. I would argue them because, Turkey was bad. Ecuador was bad. They tried, at least, Belgium was disgusting. I don't know. This is a tough one, too. I lean Uruguay.
Yeah, I think Uruguay's a fine choice here. I think Turkey were also pretty rough, but at least they created a lot of opportunities. They just couldn't finish for the life of them. So I'm fine giving it to Uruguay as well.
As bad as Uruguay was, I do think that 2-2 draw with Capo Verde was the best game of the round. It was the pace, the moments of flair, in combination with the frequent errors, the heat, the humidity, the desperation, everything sort of congealing in a. It felt like having night terrors or something, like waking up sweating in the middle of the night from a crazy dream. That's what this felt like. It felt like a hallucination or something. And then what was so interesting is that you'd think that would favor Uruguay, but by the end, it seemed like Cape Verde was the team that could find a winner in the last few minutes. Just fully entertaining, great goal celebrations. It was great. And then obviously the 5-1 Netherlands-Sweden was one of the more tactically interesting affairs. Tons of nice goals. That's the runner-up.
Yeah, I don't have any. I think you kind of nailed the two choices there. I'd probably lean Uruguay Cape Verde just because it was a little more entertaining trying to figure out who could come out on top in that one.
Worst game. I thought Iran Belgium was pretty gross. Although it was nice rooting for Iran. Belgium is just unwatchable for me right now. Croatia Panama was kind of disgusting.
Yeah, I think you could even throw Qatar Canada in there because even though Canada was fine, Qatar was so bad that it made the game difficult to watch because I was almost embarrassed watching them play as well. You could throw them in worst team as well. And then obviously having to see a gruesome injury is never fun.
Yeah. I went with worst team. I went with like disappointing more than most disappointing. Yeah.
I could tell the vibe you were going for. That's why I didn't bring them up.
Best hipster game. I thought Jordan 1, Algeria 2 was super fun to watch. Jordan games are just good to watch. And New Zealand 1, Egypt 3 was pretty entertaining. Egypt ended up overwhelming New Zealand in the second half, but the first half they didn't play very well. I think Egypt might actually be kind of good. We might have underestimated them a little bit. They played a couple of good halves now at the tournament, and it's the makings of something.
Got to see them put it together for a full game now.
Agreed. Best goal. Couldn't decide. I don't think there's like a signature goal from this round. A lot of good goals.
The one
was the best goal Uzbekistan's disallowed one in the Portugal game?
Yeah, I think the only one I sent to you that I was like, could be this was Bosnia's consolation goal from Mamic late on, which is a pretty nice finish for a volley, but a type of goal we saw in the first round of games, which had a lot better individual moments for goals.
I thought there's a lot of good goals, just I couldn't think of one that was like, absolute banger. Or so crucially important. I don't know. Let us know in the comments. Best player performance, is it Messi again? Might be. He was great. Yeah. Eloy Room, where his 15 million Instagram followers. Brian Brobby shout out here, I think, because he scored twice, but he completely set the tone for the Dutch in that game in a way that was really needed. I also wanted to give a little shout out to the ref in Turkey, Paraguay, who was the star of the week. Decision is red card. Absolute legend, that guy. Do you have a favorite from those?
Not really. I mean, I'm always partial to a record-setting performance, so Eloy Room probably gets it from me.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Messi, because he broke Klose's
I guess he did record. Also set a yeah.
The reason we're not talking about that is because...
Record, so it's a little different.
The reason we haven't talked about the Klose record being broken is because it's going to be an evolving story over the course of It's very possible that Mbappe finishes with more World Cup goals than Messi at the end of the tournament.
He's going to break it this competition.
And thus has the record. So that's an evolving story. Worst player performance, I runner up to the Uzbek keeper, Nematov, who had a really rough one. But it's got to be Koulibaly, right?
Yeah, it was. It's a shame for a player who's had such a great career, but clearly he's kind of reached the end of it.
And Mendy in goal had -1 plus XG prevented also, and not very good. Worse than the Uzbek keeper, actually. Biggest surprise, it's got to be Cape Verde again. With a chance to win the group heading into the final day. Who saw that coming? I also cannot believe Ghana has 4 points, given how much of a mess they were coming into this tournament. I mean, it was impressive enough they managed to qualify, given they finished rock bottom of their AFCON qualifying group. Not their AFCON group, their AFCON qualifying group. They did not make AFCON. They finished below Niger. They had 3 points. They did not win a game in their AFCON qualifying group. Not one.
We've got to learn our lesson from this, and just, if Ghana's in the World Cup, just move them on to the knockouts. When it happens, they're going to be there.
I cannot believe it. Best 0-0 draw. Finally get to bring this one in. It's Curaçao. But a shout out to Ghana. Best off the field moment. I think it's the South Koreans and the Mexicans going to fucking town on each other in like Guadalajara and Mexico City. Have you seen these videos? They're just like making out in the street.
Yeah,
it's all these jokes about
a great time down there.
I don't know what's happening, but if you're there's a lot of stories about frustrated Asian men in the dating pool. Take a trip down to Mexico, see what's going on down there. I also enjoyed the Scots sequel to the Fenway Park trip, They went to the Marlins Park.
Miami police,
and
are
it was
a
the
little
most
less fun, though.
Well, they were the only fans in the state. Yeah, it was a little bit of a different experience. The Marlins pit. Who was pitching? He was talking about how much he loves the Scots now, probably because he's never hasn't experienced fans since he made the big leagues. It must have been nice for the Marlins fans to actually receive some support for once. Billy Gilmore, by the way, in a huge leg brace, perfect strike from the mound. I was like, is he playing the wrong sport? Holy shit!
These guys are just athletes.
And final superlative, worst doctor, and that once again that'll be Dr. Joe, who is not a doctor.
He's got a stranglehold on this.
He's not a doctor. What is he a doctor of, David?
He's a doctorate.
What is he a doctor?
Oh my god! I shared this with you earlier. It's like
no, I know what it is. I want you to say it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. I shared it with you, and you're gonna have to remind me because
doctorate in recreation and leisure studies from the University of Utah.
I gotta get me one of those.
That's what he's going with on TV when he calls himself Dr. Joe about FIFA World Cup refereeing.
Yeah,
leisure.
Should we very briefly mention the covering of the mouth, or did we do that over the weekend?
We did it over the weekend.
Okay.
Don't do it. It's the rules. Easy not to do. Very quick, James Rodriguez check-in. We finally got some Monzambi core, David. We've been waiting all tournament for this, even though it's not only been 2 weeks. He came off the bench. He scored twice. He could have had a hat trick, but Granit Xhaka took the penalty away from him, which I thought, I'm of two minds. Is that a good captain move, sticking to the team rules, or was he being a little bit of a bitch?
I think it's probably good to stick to the team rules, especially this Swiss team seems to be very structured, very ordered, and I think it
shit
makes sense. Yeah, I know it's a very Swiss mentality, but
I don't know. I feel like there's a little tension with Xhaka and the Monzambi, the generational thing. I feel in the squad right now. It's something to keep an eye out for. I think, but completely change the tempo of the attack for them. He should start. Obviously, Buadi and Diamande, who are the star level tier of this now, looked good. Looked great again. Alex Freeman has entered the chat, David. He scored for the U.S. and has generally been pretty impressive at the tender age of 21. And Iran Kunda, the Aussie we ignored completely, I think, on our pre-tournament James list. It's making us look silly for that because he's looked a star, really, in his game and a half of minutes.
Yeah, I'd also throw in Inau Ulai on Ivory Coast. He was exceptional in their game against Germany. He does a lot of progressive carrying. Really, really exciting player to watch. Somebody that was kind of off of our radar going into this competition, but has definitely put himself into the watch list for the James Rodriguez Award.
Sure. All right, I have a hard out in 3 minutes, so I'm going to barrel through the rest of this. Who's through already? Mexico, the United States, Germany, France and Norway, Argentina, and Colombia. Eliminated teams, I'm going to rank them in terms of who I think is best to worst. Ready? Or who played best to worst so far. Jordan, Haiti, Iraq, Panama, and obviously Tunisia in last. Quick look ahead to the next round. My favorite games to watch, see if you agree. France, Norway. The only 6 points on 6 points game, I think, in the final round. And winning the group actually matters. So it should be interesting, even though Erling Haaland doesn't seem to think so. Japan and Sweden is a banger. Colombia, Portugal is a banger. Colombia topping that group right now, just needs a draw to win the group. And I think Algeria, Austria is your hipster banger. They've both shown pretty serious quality, I thought, in attack. And the other thing I'm watching, does Uruguay have any shot of taking a point off Spain and staying alive? I think that'll be interesting to watch. Other thoughts? As it stands right now, David, just going to give you a couple of... There's no point in doing this really after 2 rounds because it's going to shuffle around so much, but matchups that would be happening in the round of 32 if the group stage ended today. Netherlands, Morocco. Spain, Austria. USA would get Algeria. Brazil, Japan. Ivory Coast, Norway. Scotland in Mexico City. And England, Cape Verde. I think that would just be a bit of fun. Argentina, Uruguay. Imagine the aggro in that game. There's going to be some really spicy matchups no matter how we slice it. It's also still remains mathematically possible that a team with fewer than 3 points advances as a third place team, which is disgusting. Any parting thoughts for people here?
I really do hate the fact that you can advance without getting to 3 points. You could lose a game and fail to win a game and still go through. I really hate that. But it's the world we live in, and I guess I just have to deal with it. I am really looking forward to these concurrent games. I think it's a really fun way to watch the sport. To just kind of have it all being thrown at you and 2 games going on that impact each other so much. Really love this last round.
Well, on that note, I think Bubista's going to get yet another cheers in this tournament, as well as let's throw in a little Dick Advocaat. Dick Advocaat. Bubista and Dick.
Big cheers.
Dick cheers to Bubista.